Stories can, find you from all directions. Sometimes it's an image, sometimes it's a dialogue you hear on the subway. Sometimes it's about the thing that's missing most in your life. And
This is wonderful. I'm very excited today to be chatting with Jan-Ole Gerster, the co-writer and director of Islands. Thank you so much for the time. I really do appreciate this.
it's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Honestly, this film is wonderful. It really takes a turn that I didn't expect. It is not the type of film that I expected when it begins, and there's a lot of depth to these characters, and yet it's got a bit of a noir mystery going on as well. And where did the film come from?
Well, the film found me, I guess, and that happened when I was on holiday on this island. I escaped the grumpy, dark, and cold Berlin winter for a couple of days and ended up in one of these resorts. And I wasn't expected to be so overwhelmed by the harsh beauty of the landscape. It's really an emotional landscape, I would say, which spoke to me from the very first minute. Also, from a cinematic point of view, these wide landscapes. I was like looking at it through a cinemascope lens almost when I, you know, explored the islands. It was, I think it's a filmmaker's thing that these things happen quite fast once you click with a place. And I think this was already when I felt the urge to once in my life come back with the camera and shoot a film there. And it also happened that I had this encounter with a person that lived on the island, and actually it was a tennis coach who had his tennis court underneath my little balcony. So I was watching him every day playing hundreds and hundreds of balls over the net and saying the same things over and over to all his clients. So at one point, I guess listening to him became something like a sound installation that was telling something about the monotony of his life. And I think from that moment on, one thing led to another, and he became a character in my mind. And I went back home and started to write a story around him.
I have to ask, did you ever chat with him, or is he just this sort of
No, I
ephemeral
think I think
figure?
the character became something different. It was just more like the first spark, and I think he wasn't at all as desperate and miserable as my character. I think it's also a director's thing that you exaggerate these things a little bit and romanticize here and there, and I think they don't have a lot in common, and it turned out that my character, I think, is a way more neglected and miserable person. So no, I never really reached out to that guy, and I think it's it's also better that way. I mean, this is like really long time ago. I'm not even sure if he's still on the island or if he's like now
I
into something else.
I kind of love that. Like this is you created him out of a ghost. I think this in some ways, and I think that's not. I mean, he is obviously a very real person,
It
but
always it
this
always starts somewhere, and I don't mind if stories get at least kick-started by something that happened to you or something you read or something you experience. Stories can, find you from all directions. Sometimes it's an image, sometimes it's a dialogue you hear on the subway. Sometimes it's about the thing that's missing most in your life, and you write out of desire and longing. And in this particular case, I made connection to the guy. It's not just that I thought he was ridiculous. It was more the other way around. There was something that was connecting me with him in a also for me surprising way. And this is, when I start to get curious because I want to know why I'm so fascinated by him, because in this moment it already means you're getting personal with what's going on. Why do I think I want to make a story about this guy and not about that guy? And so I have to, ask myself these questions in the process of writing and not only explore that character, but also I think myself and ask myself what it is that I see in the character and what it has to do with me. I think this is the beauty and the mystery of the writing process.
Absolutely. I would love to know too, from your experience here. I mean, this is a film that has a very unique relationship with the concept of a holiday or getting away. And I love the conversation that Tom is having towards the end of the film with these two gentlemen, and they just say, "Yeah, it would be great to be here all the time. Permanent fun, permanent freedom." He sort of says, "No regrets." But do you think that's true? That there's this that it the idea of making a vacation permanent would lose its shine?
Well, what is vacation? Why do we choose to leave our everyday life and go somewhere else where we can, live what we think is a better life for a couple of weeks? We can relax, we can, uh, you know, like these guys that you were mentioning in that scene, start drinking at noon and we don't have to, care about the things that trouble us in our everyday life. So I think this theme is also escaping, I guess. Everybody seems to be escaping. We escape when we go on a holiday, we escape our everyday life. I mean, most people are not as privileged as we are, probably, working in a job that we love, dealing with movies that we love. Most people, I think, I'm afraid that most people don't actually like um, uh, their job, and so I think it's about escaping. It's about going to a different place, and that's not only true for the subject of and the theme of going on a holiday, but I think also for our main character who seemed to live an endless summer, but it seems that he also escaped from something. And we all know, you can't escape your problems. They will hunt you down and find you. And I think the movie is also, to a certain extent, like about confronting yourself with the things that you seem to run away from also. um yeah, so escape became a little bit the subject of the film. I think maybe even also because when I sat down to write the first draft, it was when we were all surprised by the lockdown, and I was sitting in this
Mhm.
in this office, and I felt like, oh, it would be so great to escape. So escapism, I think, is somehow the overall theme of the movie.
Absolutely. And I know we're running out of time, but I want
Unfortunately,
I know, because
I
there's so
wanted to
much to
talk to
say.
you about Marty McFly. I can see him in the background.
I do. I love Marty. I love Back
We
to the
all love
Future.
Marty. He's such a unique character.
He is. But before we go, I wanted to ask you about these characters,
Yeah.
transitioning back in these characters, because I wondered if you think that maybe you talk about these spaces away, taking time away. Do you think that they kind of expose something about ourselves, or we can learn about ourselves in these things? Because we see these characters just sort of a whole other side of them comes out in their as they try to figure things out on the island.
Well, the new year is still very young, and you know how we all start into these new years. We want to change things finally. We want to spend more time with the family. We want to lose weight. We want to read more, learn a language. It seems to be so hard to change. We all have our created our little world that seemed to be so hard to escape from. And I think this is. to me, also what I try to reflect about in this film and why I leave things, open for the audience, hoping that it allows them also to make connection to the characters and reflect about the things that might might to be good to change in their own lives, you know.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
instead, unfortunately, I mean, like, I made a huge list this year. I can tell you that. I wanted to start jogging again and do less screen times. It's all down the toilet already, and January isn't even over yet. So it seems to be hard to change, and I like that about films. I always feel a little bit betrayed when characters you really, really manage to, you know, change. I think there's a more realistic, or it's more, it's more true, or it seems more true to me if the characters in the movies deal with the fact that change is so hard to achieve. I wouldn't say it's impossible, and I do think the characters in my film had a certain revelation about their situation, but we leave the audience with the question whether they do something with that awareness of their situation.
Yeah. Yeah. There are some wonderful questions at the end of this film. I just love their interactions. These characters just feel so real. And honestly, Jan Ole, thank you so much for the time to chat with you. I really do appreciate it. It's a wonderful film.